All right, let's dive in. Buckle up. Because today, we're heading straight into the heart of the 70s. Yeah, the 70s with Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac.
Sounds like a wild ride.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Our compass for this journey is the biography Stevie Nicks. Visions, Dreams, and Rumors. And believe me, it's more than just your typical rock bio. It's like peering into this world of raw talent and ambition and, yeah, the kind of stuff that comes with fame, you know?
The behind-the-scenes stuff.
Exactly, the stuff you don't see on the album covers.
I gotta say, what gets me is how Stevie comes onto the scene, right? She's this young woman, almost this poetic spirit, kind of sheltered from the, the rough side of the music biz.
Right.
And boom, she joins Fleetwood Mac. And it's like stepping into a hurricane of, well, excess is putting it mildly. It's like someone hit fast forward on her life.
Yeah, the book really drives that point home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, here she is, 27, already a crazy talented songwriter, performing with Lindsey Buckingham, but joining Fleetwood Mac. That's like catapulting her into a whole other galaxy. And I don't just mean musically.
No, not even close. She goes from like, pretty clean living to this world of nonstop parties, the endless touring, and the drugs. Oh, man, the drugs. It's almost unbelievable.
That's a lot to take in.
It is. The book mentioned she blew like $1 million on cocaine. Just cocaine makes you think, right? Was it like an escape thing, trying to handle the pressure cooker of sudden fame? Or was it just, how things were back then?
It's a good question. I mean, it's hard to even fathom.
For sure.
And the book, it doesn't shy away from the physical toll either. I mean, it talks about how the cocaine actually, like, burned a hole in her nose. It's a pretty stark reminder that even with all the talent and success, she wasn't immune to, the dark side of addiction.
No, not at all. It really shows that whole, connection, maybe conflict between creativity and self-destruction, something you see a lot in rock, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Sadly.
And speaking of complicated things, we can't ignore the tangled relationships within Fleetwood Mac itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you got this band that's already a pressure cooker of personalities, but then you throw in Stevie's affair with Mick Fleetwood, who was married at the time. Things get interesting, to say the least.
It's like a full-blown soap opera, set against this backdrop of recording studios and sold-out stadiums. And it's not just some fling, right?
Yeah.
Both Stevie and Mick, they talk about this intense, all-consuming passion they had. They even compare it to, like, those iconic Hollywood couples, like Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like that whole explosive, maybe doomed from the start vibe. But even beyond Mick, Stevie's love life back then was a whirlwind. I mean, Don Henley, Joe Walsh, it's like she's at the center of the rock and roll universe. And these weren't just, tabloid flings. They really shaped her life and her music.
You're telling me. Her thing with Don Henley, the Eagles drummer, right? That's a poignant example. They had this passionate but short thing, and it led to a pregnancy. And Stevie ended up having an abortion. The weight of that, you can hear it in her music, especially in Sarah.
Yeah, it's a powerful song.
It is.
It shows maybe the sacrifices a career like hers demands.
Yeah.
Especially in music, which is so all-consuming.
Absolutely.
But while the Henley thing was brief, her connection with Joe Walsh, now that was deep and maybe even more destructive in the end.
He was it for her, the love of her life. She wanted to marry him badly. But they were both, struggling with addiction.
Right.
The book has this quote from Stevie where she describes them as, and this is heavy, a couple on the way to hell. It's powerful and, well, kind of tragically true.
Yeah.
Walsh ended up breaking it off. He was convinced that if they stayed together, one of them wouldn't make it. It's heartbreaking to see how addiction can just, wreck even the strongest love.
It's a tough reality.
Yeah.
And you can really see how this whole period, it was a time of extremes for Stevie. Creatively, personally, everything. The book really captures that whole over-the-top lifestyle they had on the road. Private trains, presidential suites, the kind of stuff most people only dream about. But it also seems so isolating.
Oh, for sure. They were in a bubble, completely detached. The book even mentions that to dodge customs when they were touring Europe, they hired a private train. And get this, the car they used, it used to belong to Hitler. And they even had the same attendant who, served him.
Wow. That's something.
It is.
A bizarre detail for sure. But it really speaks to the extravagance of it all. They were living in a different reality.
Totally. And as the book reveals, that lifestyle, it came with a price.
Yeah, the book really doesn't hold back on showing how much that rock and roll life took out of Stevie. I mean, the addiction, the intervention, Her own bandmates had to step in.
Right, it's a big deal. It was. And then all the health stuff, Epstein-Barr, the problems from those breast implants, it's the side of the story you don't usually hear, the after party, if you will.
Yeah, I get it. It makes her human,
Yeah.
We see the rock goddess on stage, but behind that, she's dealing with the stuff we all face, just, well, amplified by 1,000, because she's Stevie Nicks.
Right. And one of the toughest things in the book, it's her fight to get off Klonopin. They put her on that for anxiety after she kicked the coke, and it turned into this 9-year battle.
9 years.
9 years. Imagine trying to write, perform, handle all that while going through withdrawal.
I can't even imagine.
It's proof that recovery, it's not always a straight line,
Yeah.
It's messy, there are setbacks. And for someone like Stevie, with the whole world watching, the stakes are that much higher.
Definitely.
The book talks about the depression, the weight gain, even using barbiturates sometimes to deal with it all.
Yeah.
It's a far cry from that, ethereal goddess image.
And it's not like the pressure to look a certain way was any less back then, especially for women in music.
Oh, absolutely. You got to think about that added layer of scrutiny, not just a woman in a man's world, but battling addiction, body image issues, all very publicly. That's a heavy load.
Yeah, no doubt.
Huh.
The book paints this picture of her juggling all of it, the health crises, the personal struggles, and the career that's demanding everything.
Yeah.
Makes her achievements even more impressive knowing what she was up against.
Totally. And it adds this whole other dimension to her music. When you know about the addiction, the heartbreak, the health stuff, the lyrics hit you in a different way.
Oh yeah, it's like you can hear those experiences woven into the songs.
For sure. And even with all the darkness, there's this thread of hope throughout her story. The book mentions how much she believes in guardian angels, and it seems like that faith really helped her through those dark times.
Yeah, that makes sense. Believing in something bigger than yourself, it can be powerful.
Yeah.
Especially when things seem impossible. That feeling that something's got your back. For Stevie, it sounds like that faith was a lifeline.
Right. It reminds you that even in the chaos, the bad times, there can be light. And speaking of light, Stevie's story doesn't end with Fleetwood Mac. She goes on to have this huge solo career, platinum albums, solidifies her status as a legend.
She beat the odds, not just surviving, but thriving in an industry that's known for chewing people up. It's inspiring.
It really is. But what got to me, it was the ending of the book, where Stevie looks back on her life and talks about her one big regret.
What was it? I'm almost afraid to ask.
It was not having a child.
Wow. That's a lot to process, especially considering everything she did accomplish. Makes you think about how we define success, what really matters in the end.
You got it. Here's this woman. She's reached the top, fame, fortune, and yet her biggest regret is something so personal, totally separate from her career.
It's heavy. It adds this layer of, poignancy to her story. After all the wildness, the ups and downs, is the absence of something, that unrealized dream that seems to stick with you.
It really makes you think about the choices we make, the trade-offs. And for someone like Stevie, who gave so much to her music, her career, maybe there just wasn't room for it all.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It makes you wonder if she could go back, would she have done things differently? It's something we can all ask ourselves, right? What choices have shaped our lives? What dreams have we, maybe let go of along the way?
And what is success, really? Is it the outside stuff, the awards, the fame? Or is it more internal, that feeling of peace, fulfillment, living a life that, matches your values? Stevie's story, it kind of shows that it's not always a simple answer.
It definitely complicates that whole rock and roll fairy tale thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about the music and the glamour. It's the human story underneath, the real stuff, the struggles, the wins, the choices that make us who we are, even the regrets.
And that's what's so cool about these deep dives, right? We get to explore all that, to go deeper beyond the surface, to wrestle with the big questions.
Exactly. And with Stevie, it's a story that still connects with people, even decades later. She's not just a rock icon. She's a woman who lived on her own terms, with all the messiness, the beauty, the contradictions.
A total trailblazer, a poet, a survivor. And yeah, her story might be a cautionary tale about the dark side of fame, but it's also about the human spirit, the resilience, the creativity, and the redemption.
Well, there you have it. A little peek into the crazy life of Stevie Nicks during those Fleetwood Mac years. A story about talent, ambition, heartbreak,